Okay, so I wanted to share this simple framework for sharing. And what's important about this is, think about when you guys present at your organization, or you're probably already thinking, I gotta share our project and we don't know what we're doing and we haven't made enough progress. So you're thinking about presenting tomorrow. And the first thing I want you to do, and I'm gonna do this, the first thing I want you to do is not think about it as presentation, as trying to sound and look and be confident that everything's under control. No, this is sharing work early and often, sharing work before it's ready to be shared. So tomorrow isn't about faking it until you make it, although that's a good strategy in other cases. Tomorrow is about kind of an honest and not thorough, but an honest assessment and sharing of where you're at, what you've been doing, what your project's about. And to keep you from worrying about presenting, having a small structure, having a little, several points you want to get through is a much easier way just to share, right? And you're going to use wherever you've been posting your work in Miro, hopefully nobody's preparing a PowerPoint presentation deck. You don't need that. What we want to see is the raw work and data that you can tell stories about, that you can show, that you're grappling with, okay? So your Miro boards where you're brainstorming or have quotes from users, or just your research plan that's in there, and talk about what's happening in each area, is what we want you to do, right? And so there is no real prep necessary. Obviously, your team will probably get together and we're going to give you 15 minutes at the beginning of tomorrow's work session just to get your minds in the right spot, and then you can share. And so I'm going to share this framework. I'm going to go back down to my smaller self. There we go. And so the way you want to start is you have to realize your audience is coming into it quite blank, right? They're not a part of your project. They don't know what you're working on. And it's great to just start with a simple story of context. And what I mean by that is just think about the genesis or the impetus for your project. So I won't remember all the projects, but maybe you have the changing demographics of your client base. And where you've traditionally served these people, now you have a much more diverse client base. And there's questions about how you retain the best of what you've always been while becoming more accommodative and welcoming to a broader, more diverse population, right? So that would be a start story. And you could use specifics from, exactly what happened in history. Or you could say, the vaccination effort has been kind of top down from the city, and now now we realize there's an opportunity to have the community lead the effort in the ongoing goal of eliminating this virus, right? And so that's just setting context. And then what you want to do is share your project goal. So the goal of our project is to enable community members to da-da-da. So our project goal is to create an understanding and an action plan for becoming more accommodative and service-oriented in our new client population, okay? So that first a story, then your project goal, okay? So you don't want to get in there and go, so our goal is to do this, right? Because that lacks context, and it's great to set it up, and you'll hear this when we get to the end of the your Catalyst journey and you're making a final presentation to garner support. You'll start with a story. But here the story is less about kind of a critical thing, although you could practice it here, an emotional story, the story of one person's experience and asking, we don't want it to be that way, therefore our project goal is X. So this whole notion of using a structure to share with others is going to continue with us throughout the Catalyst program. So start with a story, go to your project goal, and then because of the stage we're in, we want you to share who you're interviewing about their experiences. So we're interviewing this group, these people, these community members. And your goal here is to have not just the usual suspects like our colleagues and staff, but remember, we're trying to be inclusive and we have an equity lens. And so who do you normally not speak to that you have targeted to recruit and engage in the process? That would be great to talk about here. So we're interviewing, and then their experiences, the activities they do is also interesting, right? So what people doing what activities are you trying to understand? Because that's what an experience is, right? You're not interviewing people just for their opinion. You're trying to hear their stories of behavior and history. So interviewing these folks, and then also share some of the other angles you're coming at from your research. So maybe we're looking at studies in this topic, and we're reaching out to 3 partners who have experience with this, who are in another region or city or something like that. So help flesh that out, like here's the people's experiences, and now here's some secondary and other research dimensions that we're going after. And then what's interesting so far, what we're starting to hear, and we don't know where this is going, we don't know if we're going to hear more of it, but here's 2 or 3 things that are interesting to us so far. This could be everything from what we're learning is we probably started out too broad and we're narrowing, or we're starting to hear from people that they don't even worry about those aspects and they're more concerned about these aspects, right? So whatever you're learning and whatever piquing your interest as you've gone about your research, share it. Share a couple of those. And then finally, our biggest question or challenge right now about our project is this, right? And this last one is you're setting up there to be a little vulnerable and to offer a final step that can help the people who are going to give you feedback share their feedback and have something to respond to. So let me go over that one more time. Start with a story, which sets the context of why you're doing this project. Then state your project goal. So that just sets a good context, those 2 things. We're interviewing these people. We're also exploring this. What we're finding interesting so far is X, Y, and Z. And our biggest question and challenge, or multiple things at this point, are this and this. And so how long should this take? Less than 5 minutes. I mean, it should be 3 to 4 minutes. You are not making a presentation, right? You're just sharing. And then remember that the people who, when you're not presenting, when you're not sharing your work, you're going to be writing down on sticky notes what's coming to mind as you hear them talk about their project. And so we just use the simple framework of I like, I wish, I wonder, which is I like, share what resonates with you. I wish, talk about something that would be helpful to see or know. And I wonder, share possible ideas to improve their work. So you can see how this can be very helpful to the team. And you're getting both, here's some positive things that I think you're really working on that are interesting and I like them. And here's some suggestions. I don't know if they're right, but they're just open suggestions that you can take into consideration. Now, to make this easier tomorrow, and again, we'll set this up at the beginning, we've set up a global feedback board in Miro. And I would love today at the end of the session, if you guys are still having any challenges with Miro, let's talk about those so we can better prepare for tomorrow. Because what we don't want to do is have everybody show up and go, I'm still having trouble with Miro. We understand that. We're here to help. And so I can answer some questions at the end. But this global feedback board is what we've done is created a board for each team. And then if you're listening to a team share their work, you're going to be on this board in Miro in bulk sticky mode. And I'm just going to show that real quick. So here I am over in Miro. What you'll do is you'll join the board and then you'll find whichever team you're giving feedback to. And then you want to zoom into that team's board. We have the little I like, I wish, I wonder. And you want to grab the sticky notes, but go down to bulk mode and just turn that on. So now you're ready at your computer when they're starting to share. So they'll share through Zoom. And you'll have this open in a window. Maybe it's a little bit smaller. And then I like the people you are interviewing. And you just type it in and hit return, and that allows you to type another one. I wish blah, 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 and I wonder. Okay? So you can do that, and then when the person's done with their 3 to 5 minutes, you hit done, and those sticky notes will come down onto the board. And you can move them over to wherever you want. Or you can leave them. If you use the I like, I wish, I wonder, you can just leave them on the board. Don't worry about sorting them, because now you're going to be giving some of that feedback to the team. So that's how we're going to do feedback tomorrow. And that's just a quick overview so that you can ask some questions today if you want. And we'll be in Zoom. We'll have Miro links. The teams will have their Miro boards that they're sharing. They'll share that in the breakout session. And then people giving feedback will find the proper board, whichever team they're listening to, zoom in and do some bulk sticky notes for feedback. The reason we have this, it's the easiest way we figured out to allow people to give the feedback to the other teams, because they can come in here. Actually, what we will do hang on, Sarah's calling in. Just going to put her in the green room. Welcome, Sarah. I'll be with you in just a sec. And then we'll put the feedback that people get on each one of their boards into their team board. Okay, so we can do that movement in the CCI overall account. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and come back here. And I'm going to bring Sarah in. Hey, Sarah. Okay, I can't hear you yet. Let's see. I may have interview. Let me just do this. I'll switch my scenes. And I'm seeing whether Sarah can hear us. You can hear us? Okay, or me. I cannot hear you. Why is that? I've muted the guest. Emma's here. It says guest has muted themselves. No? Bear with us, people, while we figure this out. Oh, you know what it is? Try that. Emma, can we hear you or not? You.
Am I coming through?
There you go. I can hear you. And Sarah, you can hear her? All right. Is your computer microphone on, or do you have a headset? Let's see. It does say the guest has muted themselves, so I'm wondering, could you just try calling back in? Unless you see something. Great. How are you, Emma?
I'm doing great.
Nice.
Excited to be in YouTube.
You are, is it your debut YouTube?
It is.
All right, well, welcome. All right. Okay, here comes Sarah. Like, it says guest has muted themselves. Okay, why is that? You don't see anything in the web browser, Sarah? There's no controls in your web browser that Sorry, everybody. Just bear with us. This is new technology. Well, we could try one more. Yeah, go ahead. Great. This is troubleshooting. So hopefully, if you guys are watching, if you have any questions about tomorrow's session, please feel free to put them in the comments while we figure out. Oh, Sarah's trying one more thing. Looks like she left and going to call back in. Just give us one more minute. Everybody's cheering for Sarah. That's good. We're a supportive team around here. That's right. We got this. And we'll always adjust if we have to. Emma, what's going on with you today?
Well, I wanted to give a shout out to Diana from CCI. We're part of the Amplify program, and one of the members of our cohort is Dr. Kucha Baldi. And so I just did a session inspired by her work around the importance of land acknowledgements and recognizing Indigenous history within California. So
nice.
I just really thank CCI for centering voices of Indigenous folks and people and uplifting that. And it kind of makes me think about the power dynamics that you were sharing just on Tuesday of like, when we're in positions of power, how do we really bring it to the experts who are the people who have the lived experience, and how do we create intentional space? And so I just really appreciate CCI doing that. And yeah, I don't want to burn off too much, but anyway, I feel energized from that conversation and bringing it back to the agency.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, Sarah. I still can't hear you. I'm sorry. And again, the little window in my interface says that you've muted yourself. So I don't know if there's something like, are you on Chrome? Yeah, okay.
Are you still able to share, or as we as guests, are we able to share our screens?
You are.
Could you still share the Miro boards, and maybe I can provide some narration? I don't know if that's a fix, but
because you guys wanted to share your Miro boards?
Some of the research activities that we've been doing so far, and not by we, I mean Janice and Ashley and Sarah and the amazing folks of Hill Country.
Who we can't hear from. This isn't fair. Sarah, maybe you can just participate through the chat still, and Emma can share. Oh, let's see if you can share can you share your screen? And I can set up a new scene where at least you're sharing the Miro boards, and then Emma, you're talking a little bit about what the team's been doing. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so I want to do this. I don't really want to do it that way.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, I think I figured it out.
Oh, yes. Okay. Again, everybody watching, thank you for being patient with us. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah. Thank you for being patient. Now we'll get into, a 10-minute discussion.
All right. Do you want me to share my screen still?
I think so. Hang on one second. So tell us what it was.
There was a button on my laptop that says microphone off that somehow got pushed.
Yeah, a hardware button, right?
And yeah, because on the screen it said I wasn't muted. I tried headphones, I tried whatever, I tried changing all the settings, and it wasn't working, but there's one hardware button on my computer.
I'm glad we found.
I
found it.
apologize.
No, no worries at all. Okay, so everybody's saying welcome, and yeah,
you.
let's see if we can't set up a scene where you guys are sharing your screen. So go ahead and share your screen, and I will try to get it as like the main view. First, we'll do this.
And I don't think I can see what's going on when I'm sharing, so you'll have to bear with me on the rest of the screen. While you're setting up, do you want me to give you a general idea of who
Yeah.
we are and what's going on?
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. So I work at Hill Country Health and Wellness Center. We're an FQHC in Northern California. We're about 2 to 3 hours north of Sacramento. We have a main clinic facility that's been around for 35 years. Well, parts of it in various iterations have been around for 35 years. That's about 40 minutes outside of where the main population area is in our county. And we are currently building a second site in this main population area in the city of Redding. And this site is going to allow a lot of our little satellite sites to roll into one. So we're really focused on how to best transition our staff into this new building and this new work environment.
Nice. Okay, so while I struggle over here, my scenes aren't changing for some reason. Go ahead and share a little bit about how you're going about your research and who you're talking
Sure.
to. Yeah.
So first of all, I kind of have some historical reference that we've been using. After Catalyst kind of stopped last year, I started doing a big affinity clustering project with where we really found out some of these questions. Now we're talking to some key players who are involved in this change to really, as it's getting closer, we're supposed to open in the beginning of July with patients. So we're talking with some nurses who are really key on figures in the temperature of the staff. And also I'm going to be interviewing some people in different departments because me and my colleagues are mostly focused in the medical department. But we have all these other departments that are also rolling in. So I'm going to talk with people in dental and people in behavioral health as well.
And that's awesome. How are you framing those open-ended interviews with them?
We're starting just by asking them how they're feeling about it and seeing where it goes, because we don't want to really assume that it's a positive or negative thoughts that they're going to jump to. And if they really jump to very positive, we could ask them, is there anything you're worried about? If it's really negative, is there anything you're excited about? But just letting them talk kind of through how they're feeling about it to see really where they're at.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things you can do is actually be explicit and give them permission to talk about what they might be excited about, why they think this might be a good thing, and then what they're concerned about, what the challenges might be, but offering both of those, because feeling, how are you feeling about it? Hopefully both of those will come out, and obviously facilitating it, but you can also be real explicit and say, and also a good question would be, what do you think this move means for you and your staff or stuff like that, right? And that'll give them some pointed things to think about. But that's great. I like it.
We're pretty excited.
What do you think the challenge is for your project as you move it forward?
I think we have a few different challenges. I think the one that comes to mind first is one that most people deal with, and that is the time to do it all. We're all wearing multiple hats. We're all very busy people trying to get everything else done. It's just making sure we get to our interviews, make sure we can fit it into our schedules. We're bouncing back between different locations. I think that's a very common challenge that we have, but it's one to be expected. Other stuff is, as I said previously, my teammates and I mostly work in medical. I'm probably the one who works the least in medical out of the group. So just remembering that it's not just focused on that department, I think is something that we're working on as well. And then I think also the age-old not trying to solve things and just investigate.
Yeah.
we're all jumping to how to fix it, or, oh, this sounds good, let's do that. So.
Yeah. Nice. I was going to say that, one of the things we always did in research is we saw that as a creative challenge, right? So how can we do things in a time frame, which is always limited, that can get us some interesting and exciting things that we can apply to our work? Is there anything you're doing to try to shift time or get things worked in, or is it, are you saying no to anything? Are you letting other people know that this is a priority and maybe gaining momentum with the staff themselves? How are
I
you
think we're
thinking
getting
about
a little creative. One of my teammates, Janice, was able to interview 2 staff after a vaccine clinic which was in a nearby location. And just finding those areas where we're already kind of in the right direction and we can include. We're going to do some sort of like team building and information gathering with some staff, and some of us had a meeting, so we moved it earlier. We're trying to like adjust in ways like that,
That's
and,
right.
and be as flexible as we can.
That's awesome. I love the go where they already are, and just do an intercept. Hey, do you got 20 minutes? Can I pick your brain about this? Or I'd love for you to share your thoughts on the upcoming move. That's awesome. Good job. That's exactly, that whole notion of being opportunistic is exactly what this work is about. You're less worried about doing it perfectly, or what does CCI want us to do with this method, and actually going, what's the most opportunistic and advantageous way for us to do our work. I love it. That's really important. And I forgot to ask, are there any early insights, or what are you hearing so far?
Something that came out in some of these interviews we're doing is that our staff doesn't want to look like idiots. They don't want to come on the first day and not know where anything is and feel like they're blundering in front of the patients.
That's awesome.
And I think
Awesome insight.
that's something we can build upon, is giving them this power of knowledge and confidence. So that's exciting.
I love it. That's a great insight. We've
been talking about soft openings and the possibility to maybe give them some scenarios to try out.
Nice. Soft openings, starting a little ideation in there.
I know, we can't help it.
No, that's good. You should absolutely be putting those things down, because it's just going to get better as you go. Because soft opening isn't well defined yet, and as you learn more and more, what that needs to be will become known. I love it. Right? Great. Okay. Emma and Sarah, of course. What role have you been playing as a coach, or Sarah, what role has the coach played for you guys? So, Emma, do you want to talk a little bit about what you've seen so far?
Yes. First of all, it's been a joy to return to the same team that I had last year. So I feel like we have an established relationship, although this is a totally new topic for this team. So they really pivoted. And something that I appreciated is the team shared, now we're working on the topic that was at the forefront of everyone's mind. So everyone within the clinic, everyone's thinking about the merger, and now this project is about the merger. And so it makes it really topical, really pressing, and staff want to engage in the research process because they have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this specific topic. So that's been really dynamic. Sarah is a Miro genius, and so it's been really nice as a coach that she is above and beyond in the template and designing process. And something really special the team did is a virtual mapping. So they each took some individual time, or shared time, but individually worked on a visualization of this merger. And so it was really interesting to have those 3 side-by-side graphics, essentially, of how they're envisioning this process that's going to take place. And every single one was different, which is, you tell 3 people to build a paper airplane, everyone's going to do it a little bit differently. And so that's been a kind of beautiful aspect, is this team is really willing to try a lot of the different tools to get at different parts of this project.
Yeah, so super congrats for that. I love this whole notion of, there isn't a right answer, but that you say, how would, make this map of the integration, or however you set it up, and you get 3 different views. There is so much information in there, right? Things that are in agreement, things that you didn't think of, things that are in conflict, and then that gives that surfaces information that's valuable to you for solving the project. Like, that's brilliant. And doing it visually versus everybody just talking, and you really can't keep track of how exactly everything's different, or people just start debating one thing that somebody said. When you have 3 pictures, you can really get good insights from that. That's awesome.
It was a really fun exercise for all of us to do, and it worked really well.
So I need to take a 2-second detour here and ask, how did you come to learn Miro a little bit, and what would you suggest to other teams for getting a little bit more fluid with it if it's a challenge for them?
I created a test board and then I tried every single button and saw what it did. Um, and just played around with it with stuff that didn't matter. Like, I had no plan. I just literally clicked and dragged every single button and saw what it could do. And then generally I find that when you're talking to us and you say, oh, there's a template that I've created, I automatically go into Miro and create a new board and put it in there to take a look at it, so that when we meet later, it's already created.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I think that the whole notion of playing before the game, or practicing before the game, again, this is, everybody needs to remember you're building new skills through the Catalyst program. It would be lovely if we were all geniuses and we could hop into Miro and use it without any frustration, or it would just be or Miro was designed in some magical way that it would be easy to use. But I think that notion of finding 20 minutes, a half hour, sometime, and just say, I'm going to play with this when the stakes are low, is a really smart way to get a little bit more comfortable and run into problems before you're with your team. I mean, we probably did the worst thing in the beginning, having everybody start up right away with Miro without kind of an on-ramp, and we tried to adjust that. But when you're in front of everybody and you can't use it, how frustrating that is. And so, yeah, playing, that's great. And then I like the notion that you're create a board and throw something in there to see what it is and explore it. Is there anything special you did? How did you learn to use the tool to make the mapping exercise that you did?
The other thing I just remembered is that actually in the help section of Miro, there's videos that talk you through a few different things to do, and I definitely watched some of those in the beginning as well.
Perfect.
Because I had played with this, I knew that I could just pull some shapes out and type in them and collect arrows to make these maps. And it's mostly from that play that I just tried things in an environment where it had nothing. It could be messy, like it wasn't supposed to be nice.
Sophie has a question here. Sarah, you are comfortable with the virtual tools. How are the other team members managing? And any recommendations for how to make it joyful, even when it's new or hard for some?
I think that they're doing all right. And maybe Emma has a bit of a opinion on that as well. But I think we just take it slow. And if there's issues, we take our time to figure them out. I think connectivity issues have been a little bit problematic for some of our people. And then just remembering to be in Chrome is the other thing, because sometimes all your issues are fixed by just switching your browser. But if there's questions, we take time and I try to show things. But I guess just not being concerned and letting them come up and answering the questions when they do happen.
That's right. I think that's a great, that's something that would help us or help me specifically. If you guys are having trouble or challenges with Miro, state what the actual, which part of it is a challenge, right? What are you having problems with? Like, you can't, I still think this whole notion of navigation, selection, zooming in and out and panning, you have to get that down just to feel comfortable in the environment. Then it's a matter of learning how to add content and move content around. And then things like adding a template, third step, right? But which ones of those things are especially frustrating? And if you're unable to describe it, maybe doing a quick screen recording of it to show people, or come on Thursday, like a day today, and bring those questions. And we're happy to troubleshoot them with you. That's awesome. Okay. Kathleen had a question about the project. Do you plan to interview patients? Will they use this site as well, or is it an admin building?
It's not just an admin building. It's going to be a full practice clinic. We in the beginning, we tried to decide whether we really wanted to, we felt like there was two paths. One was really focusing on the patient, and the other was really focusing on the staff. Well, we definitely might be including some patients as well in this. We ultimately decided to focus more on the staff because that's kind of where our brains were. Not that there isn't work still to do with patients on this, but it was something that allowed us to just kind of focus our brain because we were feeling a little overwhelmed by the general wide scope that we could have.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's smart. I think that whole notion of focus is important. It's a great question that Kathleen brings up and something to ask, right? Who are we interviewing and why? And that whole notion of being intentional, like for right now, we're really trying to address the staff and the movement of the organization into this to try to smooth that out. But you could also think a phase 2 could be, as you do the soft opens, maybe patient engagement and research. It becomes part of the opening process, right? Where you start letting people know with signs or flyers that we need your opinion about how things are working. We're here to work with you. It's a new location. We don't have everything worked out. Like that would be a really excellent extension of the methods into the patient experience. Go ahead.
The other thing we talked about was the fact that if our staff are confident in this, it'll help our patients be confident in it. And we definitely see the need for some communication with the patients about the whole move as well. We want to make sure that everyone's informed, but really getting our staff informed first so that they can then share is a priority to us.
Yeah, nice, nice. Emma, can you share a little bit about what you're seeing this year in terms of the Catalyst cohort? Maybe share a memory or two or what it was like going through Catalyst for yourself. And when did you go from, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming, to, I got this, I know what I'm doing?
Wow. Okay, that's a lot. Let me start with the first part of the question, which is what am I noticing about this year's cohort for Catalyst?
Yeah.
I guess just appreciating the mini modules online. It's breaking it into snippets, so we're able to process. Our team meets once a week, and so we're able to process and digest, I think, a little more thoroughly than in the past, where felt like a lot of information at once, that bigger chunk, but having it spread out, we're able to digest, we're able to dialogue, we're able to try things and think about it and then come back and look at it. So really appreciative of that aspect of the cohort this year. Excited for Friday to interact with more groups, because I think maybe that piece has been a little bit slower, of the joint connection piece. And that's such a rich and beautiful part of the in-person experience. Just sitting with other people. Yeah. And meeting them. And then last year, I remember this piece of the process feeling really overwhelming. It was, kind of my first time doing this level of informational interview. We had classically been like a survey group where we do our pre-post test and our satisfaction surveys, and we're all about that half sheet survey, which has its place. And so, yeah, exactly. And so then sitting down and doing these interviews, and we were working with teenagers, so the teen population, it was just really interesting. We came back and we had so much data. And so I really appreciated the point you made previously in one of the sessions of find the top 10 things that stood out to you, quickly find those reflections, because we came back with pages and pages and pages and pages of information. And so it was the sorting and forming from that was kind of overwhelming. And so I began to feel playful again when we got to the prototyping, because the acting and building and trying to apply the ideas was a really exciting phase.
That's right. Yeah, nice. That is awesome. I just want to do a shout out to Sarah. Janice is saying, Sarah is very patient with me. I like to delete and move things in Miro around a lot. Haha.
One of the great tips is that you can do Control Z and things come back.
Yes. Undo,
and
undo,
something
undo.
that was skillful was yesterday Janice was able to share right from her interviews, and then Sarah was the one in Miro kind of capturing that. And so Miro didn't become a barrier for the information getting recorded, and Janice is skillful, and so is Ashley as well. But in that moment, it made more sense for one person to be kind of the scribe and the other person to be just sharing from the interview process.
Okay, that's a great point and example, and it's exactly what we used to do in the real world. People would come back from interviews in the field, and then we would just let them sit at the end of the table and go, what did you hear and what stood out? And we would just write down our own notes, even though they may have had notes from their interview. And we didn't have an elegant name for it. We called it like the data dump or the research dump. But having somebody share and just somebody else taking the notes is a great like micro activity that should be a part of this. Even if you've gone and researched, maybe you went and read 3 or 4 papers about the topic that you're working on, and somebody coming back and just going, here's what I heard, versus maybe going into Miro and say, I posted my notes on the board. Like, there's no interaction. There's no like human part of that. I can go and look at your notes, but we would have them get everything out that they're thinking and what they remembered. Then we would ask questions, right? And say, oh, did you hear anything like this? And they're like, no, not really. Oh, that's interesting, right? And it would be a little bit of a sense-making session just from somebody going and doing one little interview or one, looking at some aspect of the research. That's a great point. Okay, it's about 12:45. I just want to respect everybody's time. I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. So any suggestions for other Catalyst teams or advice you have either on the Miro side or on your project side?
I think we always do better when we just sit down and try something, even if we don't really know what we're doing. Emma's very good at helping us step through that process, I think, in a graceful way, but it can be very confusing before you just try it. And even if you don't get it right, or if halfway through you realize, oh, I was supposed to be doing it this way, you're learning a lot just by taking that time to try things.
100%. Showing wisdom beyond your years, Sarah. It's so true. Just trying it is really the key, and not feeling like it's a failure if you're doing it wrong or if it feels awkward. That's so great. And Emma, how do you help them through that? With fast encouragement or?
Someone might have to observe to help me to understand how it's happening, but I don't know, the example or the analogy that pops in my head is like when someone reads you the board game rules, but then you just play the game and you learn how to do it. And so it's kind of just not getting bogged down in that. It's being curious, playful, and open to breaking it down. And I think not pretending that I know the outcome or the answer of like, let's dive in together and try this and see, because it's a shared learning process. So I do feel like it ends up being very positive and encouraging.
That is awesome. Real quick note on that whole notion of just trying one, like reading the board game rules. If I don't play board games that much because I can't stand it when people start arguing and fighting about it. I'm like, this is supposed to be a board game. But when I'm learning a new one, I always I'm just like, we're going to play 2 or 3 rounds, open, and we're going to figure out the rules together. Then we'll reshuffle everything and start afresh. Because if you don't, then the first half hour is arguing about what the rules really are while you're trying to play the game. I love it. Perfect. So thank you guys so much for joining today. You clearly are exhibiting the mindsets and the behaviors of Catalyst. It's a great inspiration to me. As you're talking about it and you're smiling, I can get the sense that you feel like you're making progress, people are learning, you've got some insights already about the staff point of view and not feeling dumb in your project. I think that's brilliant. And it's those simple things. Look, this is not sending people to Mars. This is about truly paying attention to what matters. And that is a nugget of an insight that can go the distance in making this a great transition for you guys to the new facility. So thank you guys for coming today, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow in the work session.